What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Pitts from Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, and also Pitts and Push Sports Talk Radio. We're back. It's Tuesday. It's the beginning of the week. We said every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it was going to be me and Coach Clark Jr. We're here again. As you know, Robert Morris had a game this weekend. We're going to tap into it. But first, good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Doing great, Pix. How you doing? Everything's going well, man. Excited. But did well this weekend, so it's always good after a W.
Listen, man, the smile is different this morning.
No doubt. No doubt.
Anytime you get a W, it just brightens the whole mood of everything else. Even when something else don't go right, we won, so happy
Yeah,
there.
there's no doubt. I mean, and the good thing about it when you get that W, it doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter where it is. I mean, those are what you're striving for. That's why you work all week. It's like we talked about the execution of Saturday worked out well, so we got that W.
So let's go a little bit backwards. So last week, of course, we talked about executing your training and practicing the word of the weeks of last year, and we talked about the preparation up to last this past Saturday's game against Virginia Lynchburg.
Mm-hmm.
And we also discussed your need for, I believe at that point the running backs was averaging 2.9 yards a game. There
Right.
was costly penalties on offense. So let's just start as far as the cleanup of the mistakes and the penalties. How did your team fare this week?
Well, we fared well. The first thing that happened, we went out first on kickoff, and we managed to get him inside the 35. Actually, kicked out of bounds, went to the 35. But the great thing about it, defense went out there, we're three and out. Did a good job of getting off the field. First play of offense, we go deep, touchdown. It's I think 60-something yard bomb to Noah Robinson. So the execution started out well. Executing on defense with great tackling, and then executing on offense with a play action pass that goes for a touchdown first play of the game. So it went well. So it's one of those situations where we didn't do too well in special teams when we first started, but defense started out well, offense started out well. So the execution was there. Now, we hadn't established the running game yet like we wanted to, but we had established the missing of tackles on defense. So we didn't miss any in that first drive.
So even with the defense and the missing tackles, your defense still played solid despite missed tackles along the
Mm-hmm.
way. But this week, you guys put a donut. It was I believe it was 49, was it 40,
46. 46.
46 0?
Yes, 46-0. Yeah, the
So
defense played well. I mean, they played together. Like I said, the execution was much better. A lot less missed tackles, under double digits missed tackles. Whenever you get under double digits missed tackles, you're doing a good job. Was able to hold them to 57 yards rushing. Did a good job there. I think we held them under 150 yards total offense. So the defense did a very good job. And it wasn't just the defense that kept them out of the end zone, though, because we threw a pick and one of our wide receivers, Andre Cooper, ran the guy down, knocked the ball out of the one. Then we turned around and we turned that into a touchdown. And they blocked a PAT, and they were taking it in for a touchdown. And our kicker, Jason Jenkins, ran the guy down and got in front of him and came from behind one of our tight ends, our backup tight ends, named Chaz Middleton. He ran the guy down and tackled him. So they preserved the zero also. So we did a good job of preserving that goose egg. And like I said, the defense played well.
so not only did the defense do a good job of tackling, it seems like special teams and offense did as well.
Special teams play well. After that first miscue we had kicking the ball out of bounds, it was just kind of the kicker was trying to overcompensate for the win because it was a windy day and a rainy day, trying to overcompensate and end up going out of bounds. But other than that, didn't have many mistakes. We got a punt block, but they had 12 men on the field. So it was one of those situations. And on the extra point block, what happened with that was we just got lackadaisical. We were up by 46. Guy didn't hold the edge like he should. But again, we kept the guy in the end zone, so that was important. So special teams did their job. Like I always said before, I'm not expecting special teams to win a game. I just don't want special teams to lose a game. I want to make sure special teams stays consistent. Offensively, we were able to establish that running game like you and I spoke about. We had over 250 yards rushing. We had over 300 some yards passing. Our starting quarterback threw for 4 touchdowns. Our backup quarterback threw for 1 touchdown. So we're able to do the things we want to do on offense and on defense.
So that was my next point. We'll back up some. So we talked about, as I stated, we talked about on Saturday the need for the running back average of 2.9 to go up, and it did that this week. Can you share
Mm-hmm.
a little bit insight on what transpired, Henry? Because I know it looked like it was a running back by committee. Um,
It was. It was. It's
that
been
got
that
the
way
job
pretty
done.
much all year, though. It's been that way pretty much all year. Pitch has been running back by committee. We don't have that one guy to jump out yet. We didn't have that one guy who's going to get 100 yards a game, but we're still looking for it. But it was good by committee. Cyrus Bonsu, one of our running backs, had a great job. I think he had over 50 or 60 yards.
Hmm.
Keemon O'Sullivan, we call him Pac-Man. Pac had over 40-something yards. Had another guy who had about 60 yards. So it was running
Yep.
back by committee. But the offensive line was steady. That's the thing that helped us more than anything else. Offense was creating those holes for those guys when they got in the offensive line. Did a good job of pounding the ball. Because when you get over 200-some yards rushing, that's great. Everybody wants a 100-yard rushing, but if you can average 250 yards rushing with a committee, then that's also good. And again, they held up for the passing game also. Didn't give up a sack, I don't think. If we did, we give up one sack because of a miscue, whatever situation may be. But we were able to throw for over 300-some yards. So we did good there. 500-some yards with the offense, it's always going to be good.
And of course, with that 250 yards, we surpassed that 2.9 yard average. So
3.4 yards a game. So I think we're at 3.4 yards a
progress.
game right now. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. The progress is
it's
there.
progress. And
Progress.
we talk about your quarterback. I don't pronounce his last name correctly. Chixie, Chick,
Chicken.
Chicken.
Anthony Chicken. Yeah, Anthony Chicken. Yeah, Anthony's done a great job, and I spoke about Anthony on several occasions. As a matter of fact, there's a banquet today for Anthony because I think I told you before he overcame cancer. He was a
Oh
young
wow,
man
I didn't know that.
when he was in high school, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he overcame it. He played when he had it, and he's been fighting it ever since. And it's one of those situations where he's a survivor of cancer, and then nothing shakes this guy, nothing rattles him. I tell everybody, people are like, well, why is he so calm on the field? I say because he had cancer. I'm not saying that to be smug or anything like that, but
Right.
football is kind of secondary to a life-threatening injury. So man, that's how I look at it. He looks at it the same way. He's like, Coach, it's football. I've been doing this all my life. I've been playing this all my life. And he's real calm and real collective. And because of that quiet, calm, collective confidence, he's also giving it to our offensive unit. And so it's turned out pretty good. So Anthony's a pretty good guy for us. He started out as a second team guy. Unfortunately, our first team guy got hurt against Air Force. Tyler did. And Anthony stepped in, but Anthony played last year. So Anthony started 3 or 4 games last year. So he was already acclimated to the college game, and he was able to step right in and get things rolling. So he's been doing very good these last 3 games.
Shout out to Anthony, man. He's a true survivor. Regardless of what happens on the field, he battled and he survived the greatest fight. So salute and shout out to Anthony, not only for the way he survived and fought off the field, but also the way he fought and fight on the field. He went in for 11 for 16, 251 yards, 4 touchdowns. So, despite it being rainy, wet, and windy, he definitely had a good day because you said, I believe, you put up a 60-yarder, despite the wind and knowing that you guys sit on the top of that hill, that
Yeah,
wind is no joke. So he had an amazing game, so
yeah, he
it
threw a
speaks volumes.
yeah he threw a 60-yard, and he threw an 80-yard. So I mean, it's one of those situations where he was getting after it. I mean, Anthony did a good job, but like I said, he's one of those guys. I think he played the first half. We took him out of the first half. We wanted to give our guy Trey Smith, Xavier Smith. We gave him an opportunity. Also, Xavier's also threw a touchdown. So he's a young man that played for us at Youngstown and had a touchdown for us, a rushing touchdown. So real smart young man. Had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown on Saturday. So he's a guy we're trying to get acclimated, a young freshman, because like I said, our original starter Tyler, he was hurt, and so we got to make sure we at least have 1 or 2 guys that are bumping, that buffer for that situation. Because if you don't have a trigger man, you're in trouble. We found that out early
Yeah.
last year with the young guys we had. We had some good guys last year. Don't get me wrong, but they were young. Chicken was young. Zach Tanner was young. We had a junior college guy came in and didn't pan out. So we got to make sure you have a trigger man. So we feel like we got 3 or 4 of them. So if somebody goes down, we feel like we can put the next man up.
And how's Tyler doing now?
Oh, Tyler's good. He was back practicing yesterday. He was on the field doing a good job, bouncing around a little bit. So he was fine. I think just had a bruised knee. He had a strained meniscus, but he's back right
Yeah.
now. Got his brace on, running around well. So he's excited getting after it.
Defensively, um, a shutout, on all phases. We talked about the importance of all 3 phases playing a part in how the game unfolds. When you talk offensively, you got to score points. When you talk defensively, you got to stop them from scoring points. And when you talk special teams, regardless of what happens and transpires within the play, you got to stop the other team from either scoring or we need to score. They're flipping the field, as we spoke of. Um, Can you speak more about your defense and the role they played in last Saturday as well?
Well, the great thing about defense is, and I've always said this, it's a ultimate team unit because everyone's relying on each other. Obviously, football is the ultimate team game because you can't do anything without another person. That's the great thing about a team sport like football. In basketball, a guy can take it from coast to coast and dunk it.
Yeah,
Baseball, a guy can hit a home run and make it happen. In football, you need somebody else in order to make something else happen. Quarterback needs the O-line to block. If you throw a touchdown pass, some got to have to make his right route. The quarterback's got to get you the ball in order to catch the ball, in order for you to catch a pass. Quarterback has to get the ball caught. So it's the ultimate team sport. But on defense, you're constantly relying on guys to make sure you're doing your job, make sure you're fitting where you're supposed to be at. Because it's 11 on 11. One guy slips up, we're in trouble. So Saturday, what we were able to do was capitalize on those things from each other. D-line played great. They played hard. They got out there. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which in turn made him throw some errant throws. And DBs did a good job of covering their guys and shutting them down. Tackling was, like I said, was outstanding. We had under double digits missed tackles. Anytime you're under 10, you're doing a good job. And we're in the right spaces where we need to be at. When they were catching the balls in zone, we were tackling them at 5 yards. They weren't getting yak yards. They weren't getting yards after the catch. So those are the things that we executed well. We had a good game plan. Coach Funges did a great job along with his staff, and they got out there pretty good on defense.
When we talk about your mantra, football doesn't build character, it reveals it, right? And when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about trust, relying on other guys, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking football doesn't only it doesn't reveal discipline. I mean, it doesn't build discipline, it reveals it, right? And the same thing with
Mm-hmm.
trust, because as you spoke, when it comes to the game of football, ideally separate from basketball or baseball, those or tennis, anything that's independent where you can go out there and have but football, it ideally revolves around the 11 guys on the field. And that means that the center is trusting the left guard or the right guard to be in the right gap, and they go ahead, and as well as for the tackle and the tight end. And the running backs, the quarterbacks, and the receivers are trusting each other to be where they're supposed to be. So when you talk about it's a great deal of trust that you have to have in each other. And that also takes us to where your football doesn't it doesn't build character, it reveals it. It reveals everything about a person that for an individual to go out there and me not know you, but I trust you enough to be my blindside tackle. That I'm trusting you not to let my head get knocked off. And this week, I feel that your team responded resoundingly to the loss of last week. That not only
Yeah,
did they
I agree
go
with
in,
you.
no, go
No,
ahead.
I agree with you 100%, Pitch. I agree with you. There's no doubt they responded well. And what they did was, like you said, they had each other's back. They trusted each other. We always say, hey, let's trust the Colonial next to him, make sure that he's going to get his job done. And the first thing I asked the guys when they're in the locker room on Saturday, I said, I tell you, hey, look at one another and say, I'm going to get my job done. Hey, I'm going to get my job done. Hey, you can count on me. Hey, you can count on me. So make sure you understand the man next to you can count on you. You ain't got to be friends. I tell these guys all the time, you ain't got to be buddies. You ain't got to have kumbaya sessions. You don't have to sit together. But when you hit that field, you got to believe that the man next to you is going to get his job done. And that's when the trust comes in that you just talked
Absolutely. And if you can take us through your pregame. Well, before we get to the pregame, and what were your words to your team after such a beautiful win? Talk to us about the red out. How like the crowd plays a part, especially in murky weathers. Was the crowd an advantage to you guys even in the rain? Because I know it was scattered throughout the states. Some people was with the football in the rain. Others is like, nah, I'll watch it on TV.
about. It's crazy you say that. First half, I mean, it was packed. We probably had about 3,500, 3,900 people. It was, I mean, packed. The first three and out, they were pumped about it. The first touchdown. Obviously, everybody went crazy. We went in halftime pitch and came back out. They were gone. It was there was
I
my
mean,
wife. There was my wife and parents. That was all left. I mean, it was like I looked up in the stands and my wife and the parents were there. That was it. I mean, it was like one of those situations. It was still rainy. It was starting to get colder and everything else. And I think we were up. I think we're up 33 to nothing or something like that. So it's like, you know what? This is crazy. This is getting ridiculous. So we lost that crowd at halftime, but we had a great crowd to begin the game, which is outstanding. Of course, our guys got pumped with that. And our home crowds have been good since I've gotten here. You know, even last year when we didn't have a great year, we still had crowds of 2,500, 3,000 people or more because they. One thing about Pittsburgh, you live here, they love their sports. People in
Yeah,
Pittsburgh
football
absolutely love their
specifically.
sports, man, especially football. You know, it's like it's one of those situations. So they came out, they supported us, and it was exciting atmosphere.
So when you talk about the fans even at halftime, understandably so, in the first quarter you put up 28 points, right?
Yes.
And then in the second quarter you get 5 points.
Yeah.
So as a fan, you're like, you know what? I think I've seen all I need to see at this point. It's a 33 nothing at halftime. I'm getting soaking wet. Nothing more left here to see. Don't see a comeback happening.
Yeah.
And then you come out, in the third quarter, you put up another 13 points, and in the fourth quarter, zero. How do you keep your team focused on the task at hand and not getting too, I don't want to say cocky or overconfident, but staying humble when it's such a lopsided.
I think it goes back to exactly what you just said, Pitts. It's the trust in our team and trust in our guys to do their job. And it's the backups getting an opportunity now. It's the guys at the second team going out there and we're looking at you and now you're getting graded on film. And what are you going to do? Are you going to put a good product on film? Are we going to be able to trust you when things go rough? Can you be the next man up? Right before our locker room and right outside of our locker room, I tell people this all the time. When I was in Miami, it was on the wall, and I put it on the wall here as a coach, and it says preparation plus opportunity equals success. And that's
Mm,
what it boils down to. If you're a second team guy, okay, if this guy goes down first team, can we trust you to go in there and get it done? So you got to make sure when you're out there, you're putting the product on field that the coaches can look at and say, okay, if something goes wrong, we can trust this guy. So that's how you keep guys involved and helping them understand that you're an intricate part of us winning a football game, whether you're a scout team, second team, or third team. But now when you get an opportunity during the game, let's go out there and do what we're supposed to do and know what's supposed to happen.
absolutely. What was your words to your team at the end of this?
Great game, great goose egg. Played hard. I thought towards the end, like you said, we got a little sloppy, but you know, things to build on. The great thing about learning from a win, like I've always told you, there's winning and there's learning, not winning and losing. When you're learning from a win, you're correcting from a win. It's great. When you're learning from a loss, you're trying to figure out what went wrong. But when you learn from a win, you're like, okay, we did this right. We did this right. We got to do this more. We got to do this more. So that was the great thing about it. And letting our guys know, always tell them, you got 24 hours. Whether we win or lose, you got 24 hours to be happy after this one. And then if we lose, you got 24 hours to be upset. But it's on to the next one. That's why they call it a season, because it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming.
And we transition to this week. This week, you guys are home again. Um, I'm not sure how the weather's going to be, but you have an HBCU team coming in by the way of Howard Bisons. What is your word? What is your wow? What is your word of the week for this week for your team?
Well, because of the game last week and because it was such a lopsided victory, our word this week is complacency. I told our
Mm,
guys, let's make sure we don't get complacent. Complacency, as you know, it's self-satisfaction or smug satisfaction with an existing situation. So we got to make sure our guys don't get satisfied with what's going on. We got to make sure that they don't get comfortable and thinking that we can just roll our helmets on the field and win a football game. Howard's a good football team. Regardless of the record, I think they're either 1-2 or 1-3. Regardless of the record, I think they're in the top 10 in the country in scoring offense. So they're going to get after it. They got some veterans on defense. They got some guys that play hard. They got three outstanding running backs. They got a quarterback who's been playing for the last 4 years. So they got some veterans on that team that can play well. And they coached extremely well. Larry Scott and I coached together at USF, along with Troy Douglas, who's also a defense coordinator, coach of those guys at USF. So I know the kind of coaches over there. I know the people over there. So we cannot get complacent in going into this game and going into this week of preparation.
How soon after a victory or a loss is your turnaround before you start watching game film on your next opponent?
Sunday. Yeah, after we grade our film on Sunday, I meet with the coaches about 11 o'clock on Sunday. We talk about the game that just happened, and then we're on to the next one. Now we don't meet with the players about the game until Monday, but the coaches are on to the next one on Sunday. If some coaches start getting it ready, just breaking film down, not really breaking it down visual wise or anything, but breaking it down less schematic wise and what they're going to call this and call that maybe on Friday just to kind of get it started. But as far as getting on to the next opponent, like I said, you got 24 hours to be happy, 24 hours to be sad, then it's on to the next one.
When switching gears like that, when you go from one opponent who may be specialized more in this area offensively or defensively to now switching to another opponent when you're going from Virginia Lynchburg and the style of play that they play, and then you now switch up and you're now playing a Howard University team. Uh, how tricky is that when trying to come up with your game plan? Are you first looking at what they may do good or bad at before you create your game plan, or do you already go into that meeting or that week with a predetermined mindset that this is where our strengths are, we're going to stay here, but and to combat their weakness on defense or offense?
I think kind of all those things you just kind of talked about. You kind of when you defensively, I always tell guys there's four things you have to always think about when you walk into the field. First is what's the situation, what's the down and distance, what's the personnel, and what's the formation. So as you go onto the field and as you're breaking film down defensively, you're thinking about, okay, what's the situation? What do they do in this situation? What do they do in this down and distance? What personnel do they do this out of? And what formations are they showing? Because as a defensive coach, that's how you make the calls based on the personnel situation and the down and distance they're bringing in. The formation is based on what the players are going to see after you make your call as a defensive coach. So those are the things you're going automatically as a coach. You're thinking, okay, what's the formation? What's the down and distance? And you're always basing stuff on down and distance as a coach. Same thing when it comes to offense. 1st and 10, what do they like to do on defense on 1st and 10? Are they in a base personnel defense? If we show them 3 wide receivers, are they going to put nickel out there? Are they going to put dime out there? What are they going to do? So you're always thinking about personnel and down and distance. So those are the first things you're going to. Now, as you're breaking film down, you start breaking down what do they do when they're in nickel? What do they do best? Do they play man in nickel or do they play zone in nickel? Do they feel like they play zone? Do they do a lot of line movements up front when they're doing this thing? And when I'm defensively, you're thinking, do they handle blitz as well? 3rd and short, are they trying to get the ball out quick? Do they handle blitz as well? Can we send somebody after them and get the quarterback a little nervous in the pocket? Well, all those things go as you go, but the most things you start out with, you got to start out with what's the down and distance, what personnel, what situation, and what formations are they doing stuff all of. And that's your basis of what you start with. And then all the other stuff is based on how they're doing it in game situations.
When we talk about personnel and depending on the way they respond or how they may have responded in their past games, say for instance on defense for the Bisons, then on defense, they respond. They don't respond well when it's more of a bruising running back versus a scat back, a quicker back. And
Yep.
say in your situation, say that your scat back has been the one who really got your game going. Did you
Mm-hmm.
switch up your personnel to now make sure that the bruising back, because that's what appears to break them down more faster? Did you switch up your personnel to combat that, even though the scat back may be your featured back, even though it's a running back committee?
I think so. There's no doubt about it. If you can get a linebacker buckling under pressure to where you're sending a guy on him and the guys just wrecking him and wrecking him and wrecking him, you got to cater to those needs more than anything else. And you talk to some offensive coordinators, they got a call sheet. They're going to call every play on that sheet. And you got some guys who are just going to stomp the freaking water out of the puddle, until they can do the same run over and over. They're going to run power. If you can't stop power, they're going to run power. If you can't stop zone, they're going to run zone. So whatever they're going to cater to is what you can't stop at that time. So absolutely, if you go into a game and you think they can't stop a bruising running back, then you're going to put yourself in a position where you got more of a bruising running back there, and your personnel is going to be adjusted to such.
When you say adjustment, because that was my next question. Um, in transition of a game or during the duration of a game, a lot of times when people, I won't say people, but a lot of times people think adjustments come at halftime. But during the first quarter, there's such thing as adjustments when you see, okay, they're doing something that we didn't predict them or that we didn't see on film. So now we have to adjust to that. How are those adjustments made, or do you wait to see if those things keep going, or do you adjust readily? Like you give it time to see how your players respond before adjusting.
Well, just to give you an idea, when I was a defense coordinator at another school, and we kept getting this situation where they line the back up in the backfield, they put 3 receivers to the field, and they bring the receiver into the boundary inside of the numbers. And what they were doing was they swing the back out of the backfield because they knew that the linebacker in the box was covering him, and they'd bring the wide receiver on a shallow route. Now that would force the linebacker to try to get over the top, which would leave the back wide open in the field. And they did that all the way down the field for a touchdown. So right after that happened, we went over. We gave what's called a push call. What a push call is, every time that guy reduces splits, we'd still walk up on it, but now the corner would take the back out of the backfield, and now the linebacker would take the receiver because he was running that route. So we made a push. So to answer your question, it has to be done as soon as you see it. Now, regardless if they give it to you or not, they may have just given it to us just for that first series, and then once we make the adjustment, we now see it again. But you have to make the adjustment as soon as you can make that adjustment.
And with the week being so early, um, did you go in pads early, or you do more walkthrough first, to give the players the game plan, and then you'll start to progress with pads, and then kind of ramp it down, to before the game approaches.
We pretty much stay in uppers all week long. Uppers meaning helmets and shoulder pads. We were
Okay.
staying that all week. But even on Mondays, we practice on Monday nights. But even on Mondays, we do some walkthrough. We always do walkthrough stuff to get the guys acclimated to what they're going to see, to make sure, especially on defense, our run fits are where they're supposed to be at. To make sure the linebackers understand, okay, the defensive tackle's going to be here, defensive end's going to be here. This is where you're supposed to fit. Safety's going to fit off of you. So we want to make sure we're walking through it and seeing the runs and seeing what they're doing and stuff like that. Also, when you do certain blitzes, you want to make sure your blitzes are fitting exactly what it's supposed to. So you're going to do those walkthroughs, but walkthroughs are throughout the week. It's just a matter on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays when things speed up a little bit. You start doing a little bit faster. You start going in scout teams and stuff like that.
Well, first we started off with uncomfortable, then we went to training and practice, and now we're at complacent. And each one of those phrases not only plays a pivotal part in the way your players respond on the field, but it also plays a pivotal part in maturation of how they respond off the field. So I look forward to Thursday. I look forward to this week because, I will definitely be in the house. Joe Bob, be at the Joe this Saturday, going down the Robert Morris Colonials versus those Howard Bisons. Coach, it was another great one. Look forward to Thursday. Let's get it.
No doubt. Let's get it going, man. Let's go, Bobby Moe.
Y'all hit her here, man. It's your boy Pitts on Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV Sports. You can catch me on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 on Comcast, Channel 77, Verizon, Channel 11. Also, catch me up on Pitts and Push Sports Talk Radio. This is your boy. We out.